They thought he'd stay quiet. He just waited for the permit. If it were me, Karen would be the one dialing 911 for herself. Eli Graves didn't shout. He just stood there, sweat on his collar, holding the sledgehammer. Concrete cracked, memories splintered, and across the fence Karen smiled, phone to her ear, already dialing. "Yes, officer, he's tearing up his yard illegally." What she didn't know? That pool wasn't a mistake. It was bait. 3 years of silence had bought Eli something more powerful than anger. He didn't yell back. He just read the law, folded it, and built a plan deep enough to bury her patio. He didn't keep the land for profit. He kept it because someone had to. The corner post was still there, rusted steel, sunk in concrete by his father in '82. No GPS, no drones, just rope and stakes and respect for the line. Eli Graves knew every inch of his backyard. The cherry tree by the old fence, the crack in the concrete where his daughter's bike fell years ago. The sun hit the same spot every morning at 8:13. And Karen's new patio, it never should have caught that light. She moved in loud, new siding, 2 yapping dogs, lawn signs about standards. Then came the passive notes. "Your bin's out too long. Your grass is 2 inches high." It never bothered him, not enough. Until she used his grief. The pool wasn't dangerous. It was empty, and Eli hadn't seen his daughter in 46 days. Karen saw a man breaking things, not a man breaking. So she called the cops, right as he was tearing down the only thing his ex-wife still held against him. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just looked at the hole, then looked at the fence, and remembered what Jimmy once told him. Some people build too far. Let them. They'll pay double to take it back. It started with tape, yellow plastic, fluttering across Eli's backyard like a crime scene. The city had posted a stop work order, unpermitted demolition, environmental risk. Pending citation. Karen stood by her kitchen window, coffee in one hand, victory in the other. Eli didn't flinch. He read the notice, folded it, slipped it into a drawer labeled Phase 1. The next day a letter came, HOA violation. Disruption of visual harmony, it said. Apparently a half-demolished pool offended the aesthetic fabric of the neighborhood. He made no calls, no complaints, just waited, measured, took photos. The tape stayed up for 3 weeks. Neighbors talked. Karen smiled wider. Then came the police. A knock at 7:42 a.m. 2 officers, neutral but alert. Karen was already outside. Robe, phone, performance. "He's using heavy machinery without permits. He's throwing debris near our property line. My grandkids play back here." Eli said nothing. He handed them a folder, a thin one. Inside, receipts, old permits. Copies of tool rentals under 25 horsepower. Just below the noise regulation threshold. It wasn't a defense, it was delay. Because what he really needed wasn't permission. It was proof. 2 days later, he called Jimmy. "You still got your surveyor's license?" "Not since 2008, Jimmy said. "But I know who does." "Good. I want it official. I want it clean. And I want it public." Eli stood at the edge of his yard that night. The fence looked the same as always. But now, it felt closer. Too close. He ran a string line, corner to corner, then paced the gap between her deck and the boundary marker his father had sunk deep. 17 inches. He exhaled, slow, sharp, then went inside and pulled out the drawer marked Phase 2. That sting. When they talk over you, thinking you'll just take it. You saw it coming. You said nothing, but inside, you never forgot. Ever held back like that? Say it below. And if you want to see how this ends, you'll know where to stay. Jimmy showed up with a laser level and a smirk. "Surveyors booked, but until then, let's make her nervous." They started at dawn, steel stakes, spray paint, bright orange flags. A grid stretched across the yard like battlefield geometry. Eli didn't explain, Karen didn't ask, but her curtains moved, often. By day 3, Jimmy had confirmed it. Her fence crossed the line, her deck crossed the law. Eli didn't gloat, he documented. Photos from 5 angles, time-stamped, geo-tagged. One email, sent to the county with a subject line that read, "Request for property boundary verification, potential violation." That was the bait. Karen took it. The next morning, she stormed across the lawn. "You're harassing me," she said. "You're weaponizing the city." Eli sipped his coffee, said nothing. "You've got flags on my side. That's not your side," he said quietly. She stared, realized, stepped back. 2 hours later, she sent out a group message to the HOA board. Eli was CC'd, deliberately. Certain neighbors are engaging in hostile behavior, disruptive construction activity, possible zoning violations. Eli replied once. APDF. Construction permit, pre-application notice. Graves residence, workshop building 20 by 30 feet. No words, just paper. It hit harder than shouting, because the city now required formal neighborhood notification, which meant surveyors, on site, environmental inspectors on both properties, HOA liaison looped in. And most important, Karen could no longer hide the deck. She'd screamed rules for years. Now the rules were looking directly at her, and Eli hadn't said more than 4 sentences. The real trap wasn't legal. It was optical. From this angle, for the first time, the whole neighborhood could see. Karen's fence was crooked, her patio didn't belong, and her story had cracks. The official survey came back on a Thursday, black and white, notarized, sealed. Fence, 19 inches inside Eli's property. Deck, 8 inches over legal setback. Shed, too close. AC unit misaligned. Eli didn't forward it. He printed it, then handed it, in person, to the city inspector during his pre-build site visit. Karen saw the exchange from her porch. She didn't ask what was in the envelope, but her husband, Bob, came home early that day. By Friday, city markers showed up, small white flags on Karen's side, inspection tape wrapped around her deck posts. Rodriguez, the same officer from months ago, now in a different uniform, planning department. "This isn't about neighbor disputes," he said. "It's code enforcement now." Karen tried to pivot. She posted in the HOA group. "Unpermitted construction affects all of us." Eli replied with a photo. Just one. Her fence, her deck, his boundary stake, yes, nothing else. No caption. By nightfall, 4 neighbors had unfollowed Karen's page. Saturday morning, a planning notice appeared on Eli's front lawn. Proposed structure, workshop, 16 feet height. Border proximity, 5 feet 1 inch. Standard, legal. But from Karen's kitchen window, it meant shadow. Noise, view gone. Bob knocked that afternoon, tried civility. "Can't we just talk this out?" Eli offered him lemonade. Didn't mention the HOA's new subcommittee vote, one he'd quietly petitioned for. Noise limits, fence visibility, backyard lighting ordinances. All things Karen had once weaponized, now reviewed line by line. By Sunday, city records updated. Karen had 21 days to file corrective action, or face daily fines. That night, Eli sat in his garage drafting plans. Karen's deck light flickered on. She stood alone, no phone, no robe, just stillness. For the first time, she looked small. Eli didn't wave, didn't move. He just clicked the cap back on his pen. The game was still on, but she'd stopped smiling. Karen filed for an appeal on day 19. Too late. The city had already logged the violations. And the photos? They came from 3 different addresses, not Eli's. One neighbor even added her own. "Her deck's been dripping into my garden for years." Eli said nothing. He just forwarded the case file to the compliance office with 1 sentence, confirming no resolution submitted. That triggered phase 4, a variance hearing, open to the public, mandatory notice to all adjacent homes. The flyer landed in every mailbox on the block. Encroachment case, Henderson residence, possible demolition. Karen didn't show up. Bob did, red-eyed, furious, alone. He pleaded ignorance, blamed their contractor, claimed they'd hired a professional. Eli waited, then slid across the table a printed page, a business card stapled to a permit application from 3 years ago. The name? Bob's brother-in-law, unlicensed, disbarred in 2 counties. The room fell silent. One council member leaned back. "Sir, this could escalate to civil liability." Bob left without collecting his papers. By Monday, the contractor's name had been flagged in city records. Karen's permit froze. Her renovation halted. Fines started ticking, $500 a day. But the final twist? It came quietly. Eli submitted a noise notice update for his workshop project. Not because he needed to, but because that triggered another site visit. City vehicles rolled in. Cameras, clipboards, measuring tools. They had to inspect every adjacent boundary. Karen's shed? Too close. Her dog fence? Built over a buried utility line? By Thursday, she was crying on her lawn. Bob was sleeping at his brother's. And Eli? He was laying foundation stakes, legally, cleanly, loud enough to echo. The same officer she once called on him now stood in her backyard, issuing fines. No yelling, no threats, just code and time. Construction started at exactly 7 a.m., Monday. No music, no chaos, just drills, concrete mixers, and Eli, calm, focused, unbothered. The new workshop rose fast, beams in place by midweek, roof on by Sunday. Painted soft gray, same shade as the house his daughter once called home. Karen never spoke again. She passed him twice, each time slower. The last time, she stopped, eyes red, fingers clenched around an envelope. She opened her mouth, then closed it, and walked away. Eli didn't watch her go. He just adjusted the final bracket on the east wall, measured it once, twice, drove the last screw in with a quiet click. That night, he stepped back into the yard, looked at the clean line of his fence, the trimmed edge of her property. No more overlap, no more pretending. From the side of the new workshop, a small sign hung under the eaves. Nothing fancy, just 4 words burned into wood. Line held, damage measured. He locked the door, set down the drill, and walked inside. Not everyone fights to win. Some just want no one to touch what they kept alive for too long. A workshop rose. But it wasn't just wood and roof lines. It was boundary, made visible. Not every wall keeps people out. Some are built so peace can stay in. The dog stopped barking after a while. The garden never quite got its sunlight back. But the grass, where the old pool once was, grew clean. Quiet. She still walks past. He still doesn't look up. No need. The permits are framed in the back room, not out of pride, but memory. Proof that knowing the rules is different than needing to use them. Some men raise their voice, some raise a foundation. Time teaches this. Dignity is a longer game. Fences can be moved, but respect has to be drawn. There are things that don't need to be defended loudly, as long as the line holds, and no one forgets where it is.